Hi, welcome to Trans City's podcast, Tea Break. This is episode 11, and today we're going to be talking about Trans Day of Visibility. So I'm just going to do a quick round of introductions. We'll start with you, Emily.
Me, Emily. Hi, I'm Emily. I'm Executive Director at Transit City.
I guess I'm second because that's the way it looks on my screen. I'm Vicky Hodges. I guess I'm the podcast girl, so that's who I am.
Hi,
Leah
I'm Leah Beckbridge, one of the executive directors at Transgender City.
and Skye.
I'm Skye, and I'm also a director at Transgender City.
Excellent. So I thought, why don't we start off with some terminology? What does it mean? What does the word transgender mean? Who wants to answer that?
You can have the dictionary definition, I suppose, which is very simply that your gender that you live in, that you are, is different to that was assigned to you at birth. So when you're born, you are gendered based on an observation of anatomy and a number of other things, and sometimes that is wrong, and therefore you deal with that later on, and then therefore you are called transgender. In Latin, trans just means on the other side of,
Yes.
and gender is your presentation to the world.
I quite often hear people, saying they identify as transgender. Now, for me, it's a bit of a kind of I don't identify as transgender. I identify as female because, the word transgender is not really an identity in itself. I don't know, Skye, what do you think about that? Is that something that you come across?
Yeah, very much so. And I'm going to say I agree with you that yes, I am a trans woman, I am a trans female, but being trans isn't my everything. I'm a woman. I'm a female. I've always known that. I've always felt that, and I've always known that what was in here doesn't match what's out here. But I also know that I'm a woman. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, and Leah, what do you have any thoughts on that? What it
Yeah, I think
means?
just pick up on what Emily and Skye and yourself have said. Yeah, I mean, I'm a woman. I'm a woman. I'm female. Was assigned male at birth, and therefore, by definition, I am transitioning genders. Therefore, I'm transgender. But that's more state rather than an identity. It more accurately describes um, sort of what I'm going through and sort of facets of me rather than my entire identity. And as Skye said, being a woman or a trans woman is just one very small part of the whole person that is me. It's a very, very fundamental core part of me, absolutely. And that's not to acknowledge that, yeah, absolutely. But it's transgender for me is my state of being, not my identity. That makes sense. Just to kind of tease those
Yeah,
two concepts apart a bit more.
yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. So, Emily, I would say that you're probably the bit of the history buff on the panel here. Um,
I make most of it up.
do you know the history of Transgender Day of Visibility?
I do know the
Okay,
history of Transgender Day of
please.
Visibility. So, so the first observation for the trans community was actually Trans Day of Remembrance, which is in November. And that was set up as a way of recognizing the sheer volume of transgender people who are attacked, killed, and have taken their own lives as a result of the response to them living as trans. And around that we have Trans Awareness Week, which runs up to that event. And a few years ago, it was decided that actually, it's really important we recognise the people we've lost, and really important we recognise the perils that we go through. But we needed a day to celebrate. We needed a day where we were just saying, here we are. There's a lot of narrative that we are something new, that we are a social contagion, or all these sort of things you hear. And the reality is we've always existed. So to have a Trans Day of Visibility was the idea. It's an idea of celebration, of visibility, of being seen, of just being yourself. And to the points that were made earlier, trans is a modifier to a word. I am a trans woman. I am a tall woman, a brunette woman, a blue-eyed woman. All of those things are part of who I am. But this is a day where I get to celebrate the part of me that is trans. And it is exactly 6 months from Trans Day of Visibility. So we have something bookending either parts of the year. So in 6 months' time, we will be talking about Trans Day of Remembrance. And it just means that we're not always just thinking about that dark time. So that's the history. That's what it is.
Yeah, so if we were to look at the purpose of it, the kind of notes I've got written down, it's like to normalization, humanization, dispel the bogeyman syndrome, and celebrate our existence, our lives, and our successes. I mean, that's how I kind of, define its purpose. I mean, Leah and Skye, how do you see it as, in terms of its purpose?
I think it's really important for somebody who is trans to celebrate themselves, because being trans is very, very difficult. It comes with it lots of societal pressures. It comes with it lots of internal pressures. And just being able to say, hi, I'm Skye, and I'm me, I'm human, without any of that noise, without any of that kind of nonsense that just surrounds it, whether it's internal or external. I think it's wonderful. Visibility, with visibility comes normality. And as Emily said, that, just we're normal people. I'm me. I didn't choose to be this way. I am me, and I am Skye. And being able just to have that moment of sitting back and going, hi, I'm me and I'm normal and I'm human and nothing else. It is brilliant, and it's really important. And, lots of people understand that.
So I just jump in and say, I don't ever use the word normal, because it's rubbish to be normal, right? Normality is boring. Normality is mundane.
Who wants to be normal anyway?
Usualization is the word I use. It should just be a usual occurrence to see a trans person. So I mean, look, I don't police other people's language, and that's fine. But for me, I never use the word normal, because who wants to be normal?
And Leah, what would you say?
Yeah,
In terms
so
of
I
purpose?
think to go off in a slightly different direction, but to bear with me, I'm sure I'll get to the point. I mean, for me, since coming out a few years ago and being out and being visible every day, every day is a visible day as a trans person. And every day I'm never quite sure how that day is going to go. I mean, fortunately, so far they've all broadly gone okay. And for me, it's kind of part of, particularly on Trans Day of Visibility, and then really especially on Trans Day of Remembrance, being out and being a visible trans person is, for all of those people who might not yet be out or are still working out, because it took me a very, very long time to work out what was going on with me. And then to see that you can live your life as a trans person, you can thrive as a trans person. And then so to have that day of visibility that is dedicated to us and recognizes us specifically as us on a given day, as opposed to all of the days where we're out and about as a being visible without choice, to have that day where we can be proud about being who we are, being trans, and that state of being trans and our identity is celebrated and recognized, as opposed to all of the other days where it's a little bit more, there's a bit more of an edge to my days than there used to be 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not going to deny that. So to have a day where, you know what, this is just for us, and it's intended to celebrate us, and that's what's so powerful for me about it.
Yeah, when you were talking that, I was remembering the first day I was brave enough to step outside the doors myself. That was such a scary moment. It took me such a long time to get to that point. I had to use a life coach and all kinds of tricks and things, to get me to the point where I was confident enough to actually step outside. it was terrifying. I don't know if anybody else has similar experience.
Yeah, hugely.
Yeah.
I came out during lockdown, so my social transition was truncated a bit by not being able to be out as often, just because you weren't allowed to leave your house. So it was a bit more difficult. So all of all of my clothes purchases and stuff were all done online, and then stuff would just turn up at the house, and then 80% of it would go back because I had no idea what I was doing with clothing sizes. And but then that first day, going to the office for the first time, I tried coming to the office, and everybody knew who I was. That first time stepping out of my house, and I live on the south coast, and I work up in the city of London. So it's quite a journey for me. There's a train and a change and the tube, so there's a lot of being out and being visible. And what I found, what was so I was terrified of getting on the train, and of course because I'd not commuted for such a long time, I'd forgotten that everybody's just got their head down and just got their laptops open. And I did exactly the same thing. And all of my nerves melted away when nobody batted an eyelid.
It's surprising how no one notices.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like you're absolutely terrified of doing this act, and then you do it, and like, nobody cared.
Yeah, and I mean, to talk to Emily's point about that's how it should be every day, and it's not that every day, absolutely not. But when you have those days, that's just wonderful. And I think Trans Day of Visibility hopefully gives us that sense of safety and sanctuary that we perhaps lack the 364 other days of the year, where we are constantly worried about how we police ourselves in when we're out and about. I absolutely do. I've changed my behaviors, how I act. I don't make eye contact anything like as much as I used to. That sort of stuff. That you try to become invisible every other day of the year. You just blend into the background as much as you can, despite how you may feel, or you think you look. But your point, I think, around that those, when you do it and the fears go away, or don't go away, but they become less. That just sort of trying to get to that state all the time would be lovely. And I think Trans Day Visibility hopefully gives us that, at least for one day a year.
Yeah, I mean, it helps to work towards that normalization thing we were talking about before. I think that's really important. And Skye, you're very visible in your job. Could you just talk a little bit around what visibility means to you in that role that you work out?
So I am I'm a technical trainer in the police, so that means I teach public order, public safety to 8,000 cops a year, but I'm also a taser lead instructor for my region. And the police, historically, and some places still is not somewhere where it can be particularly comfortable for trans people. So for me, being visible in a place where I can just be me, I don't need to talk about worldly issues, by trans issues or anything like that. I can just be me. And yeah, I quite like that usualization. So I'm going to steal that off Emily. And just me being me and standing up and teaching public order, public safety, teaching taser, teaching the disciplines that I'm qualified and licensed to teach, utilizes trans people, because we are here and we exist and we're always going to exist and we are never not going to exist. And so having me standing there in front of 8,000 people every single year just shows them that I'm normal and that I've got my own life, I've got my own thoughts, my own feelings, I've got my own wants, needs and desires, and they're not that dissimilar to anyone else. And I think it's really important, because police are very, very empowered, and quite often will deal with people, and how they have previous kind of experience of people can often form how they deal with that person in the future, or if they've never met them. But now I know that if in my area people are dealing with trans people in that core area of business, they know that they're saying, yeah, I know Skye. Skye's all right. And they're just treating them as normal people rather than what they've read about in the press or in the mail or the on the TV or on social media.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, you know, your visibility in the police, you know, it's potentially quite a dangerous situation for you to be in, you know, and the fact that you're seeing all these police officers and training them, you know, it gives them the opportunity to meet somebody who's trans, you know, and you know, that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Visibility, normalization of that.
Yeah.
And Emily, you have a similar thing with, you know, with the rugby, is it the Quins that your team? You're very visible in that. I mean, how has that, you know, manifested itself in terms of visibility?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of aspects to it. I mean, I'm visible because I'm also very tall and very broad. So, you know, I'm relatively unmissable. So even for a cisgender woman, I would be considered tall. For a cisgender man, I would be considered tall. So my visibility is there. But doing the things I do, so you know, I've got the day job. I'm a vice president of the FTSE 100, so I'm quite visible in that respect. I'm the founder and chair of Quins Pride, which is so far the world's only LGBT supporters association in professional rugby. And operating in an environment where trans women have been effectively banned from the sport, and we were pretty much thrown to the wolves. It does make you a bit of a spokesperson. You know, you have to step up, and I think, you know, it speaks to a point about why visibility is important. I think probably in common with all of us, you know, I came out for the final time late in life. I came out at 43, having lived with being trans, knowingly being trans from the age of 6. You know, it's a long time to spend in the closet. And one of the reasons why I didn't get to come out, I mean, there are a number of reasons. There's a bit of conversion therapy in there. There's a couple of, you know, attempts to take my own life. There's, you know, a few ins and outs, and I think many of us have a similar story. But one of the main reasons was there wasn't anyone like me. I mean, for many, many years, I thought I was genuinely the only person, and I was very abnormal, you know, to use that expression, you know, and that's exactly how it was portrayed. It was portrayed as an abnormality and something which was undesirable, which, you know, could be beaten or talked out of somebody. And what I didn't see, you know, were the people just like me, the people who liked to go to rugby matches, the people who had jobs in good companies, the people in the police, the people in the armed forces, the people, you know, you just see every day, you know, bimbling around the co-op, you know, buying their stuff for their dinner, you know. Because you don't see that, you do start to think, well, you know, is there something wrong with me? Am I the only person in the world? And once you start to have visibility, you start to look around you and realize there are lots of us. You know, we're a small minority, but there are a lot of us around. And one of the reasons we find ourselves under so much attack, and as Skye talked about, social media, you know, governmental attack, is scapegoating only really works if you choose a small enough scapegoat group that most people haven't come across them. And we're not the only ones, you know, we're not alone as the scapegoat. And so you can say all sorts of things, particularly about trans women, and the majority of people just don't know a trans woman. They don't know somebody they can say, well, hang on, that just doesn't make any sense. You're saying this about all trans women are X, Y, or Z, but hang on, I know Emily, you know, I know Skye, you know, I know Leah. That just doesn't scan. So the visibility becomes really important without even saying anything as an antidote to that sort of nonsense. So for me, yeah, you know, sports is a big thing. I kind of wish somehow it wasn't. I wish I was just there supporting my team. You know, sports is my recreation. That's, you know, I go there because I enjoy watching rugby. You know, I enjoy supporting the men's and women's teams at Harlequins. It's become more than that because of that need for visibility, and because there just are no other trans women in leadership positions within the rugby community. So, you know, in the light of what's happened, you know, it's my job, my duty, I guess, to step up and be visible.
So that was the driver for you to get involved with Quins?
No. I mean, initially, I mean, we weren't banned when I started Quins Pride, with a group of others. It was literally, the motivation was that we wanted our rugby ground, our home, the Stoop, to be a friendly place for queer people to meet. And it's not just, Quins Pride is about all of us. I want my gay, lesbian, bi friends, whether they be trans or cis, to be able to bring their partner, to kiss their partner, to hug their partner, to be visible and just come and do everything that everyone else does. I also want trans people not to feel the way I did my first match back. My first match at Harlequins was 1983.
Wow.
I went when I was in the Cubs, and it was one of the most terrifying walks of my life. The first time I went back post social transition. I don't want anyone to feel that way. You should feel relaxed going to sport. You should, feel celebratory. You should feel that sense of camaraderie, and that's why we set Quins Pride up. It just happened that we had to, we were on the deck when everything went upside down. And as I say, it just feels like a duty that we've got to stand up and we've got to say, what are the important things in spectator rugby? So we're not talking about just playing. We're talking about all the things that matter everywhere else. Are you safe? Are you safe on a train? Are you safe, in the petrol station? Are you safe at work? Are you safe walking down the street? I'm just extending that. Are you safe in a sports stadium where sometimes it can be scary? People are drinking. There are groups of men. It can be a scary place. And we want to say, well, it shouldn't be a scary place. It should be a place that I feel welcome, that people feel welcome to bring their children, that people can bring their partners, same sex or otherwise, and just have a good day. And that's what it's all about.
So somebody seeing that exists, I think that would really encourage me to go along.
Yeah, well, I hope so. And you couldn't pick a better team. You've moved a bit far away though, but
yeah, it would be a bit of a drive.
Yeah.
So in terms of, a takeaway from this, what would each of you want people watching or listening to this to take away as the message? I'll start with you, Leah.
I think it's to pick up on what Emily was saying about the fact, there aren't very many of us. We're a minority, but we're a present and persistent minority. I knew something, I knew something was different about me from a very, very, very early age. And looking back after I came out and realized I was trans and came out, I worked out that I was picking up on I would see trans people on television very, very, very occasionally. And I would remember seeing that person, and it would be it may even be, it may have been a 5-minute slot about something, but my brain had spotted all of those things during my childhood. So I'd been seeing, visibly seeing other trans people and realizing, and picking up on that. I think the takeaway would be the Trans Day of Visibility, hopefully, as Emily said, it makes it just a normal thing for us to be. We're your friends, we're your sisters, we're your daughters, or sons and brothers if you're transmasculine. Or just non-binary or gender non-conforming siblings and parents, and we're just ordinary people with this the same issues and problems that everyone else has got.
Yeah, exactly.
With the added burden of being a trans person, which in and of itself is challenging enough in a cis heteronormative society. And then you pile on top all the stuff Emily was talking about, that she's experienced, and I know Skye gets, the grief that we get from vested interests that are opposed to our existence for whatever reason. We're carrying a heavy load anyway, and then to have all of that extra stuff imposed on us. We're not out there looking for a fight, but we are having to fight back because we keep getting dragged into a fight. We don't want to be a part of, and we didn't want. And the fight is so asymmetric because of, as Emily said, that our numbers are, tiny. So I think my takeaway, summing all of that up, is just know that we are just people, as Skye said, like everybody else, with all of the same worries, all of the same issues. My dog isn't well at the moment. That is currently the biggest thing in my life. Is I've got to get my dog better because she's not well.
Yeah.
And we're spending a lot of time and effort and money and tension fixing her or trying to fix her. That's the biggest concern in my life at the moment. And I'm sure thousands of people with pets will be going through the same thing. So that's my message. That's my ask. We're just ordinary people with a huge amount of extra baggage.
And Skye, what would you say?
To be your true self and to be trans opened yourself up to huge amounts of scrutiny, whether that's positive or negative, but people scrutinize you. To be trans is people look at you on the train. Emily talked about, are you safe on the train? And people will look at you and people will laugh and people will judge, and they don't know you. To be trans is to be looked at and to be judged, to be seen and to become kind of a figure that is unusual, maybe a figure of fun. But yet it shouldn't be. And this is why Trans Day of Visibility is really important, because it is to show that we are normal. We are usual. We have existed throughout time. We have always existed throughout time. We exist now in the present, and we will always exist in the future. As long as there's human beings, there are going to be trans people. And I just want to be me. I just want to live my life. I shouldn't have to stand up and do podcasts. I shouldn't have to stand up and explain myself to people every single waking hour of my life. I'm just me. I'm Skye. I'm trans. And since I've accepted myself, most of my own burdens have gone, and I am internally happy. And shouldn't that be the most important thing?
Yeah, couldn't put it better myself.
Yeah.
We do kind of unburden ourselves when we transitioned of all that, baggage we've been carrying around for years. Yeah, and Emily, what would your takeaway message be?
Yeah, so look, it's a grim time at the moment, and throughout history, groups have gone through grim times. They don't last. They don't last forever. There will come a point where we will get apologies. We will get, a return to a level of usuality. So my message to people in the trans community is be proud of who you are, because you are role models for the ones who come behind you. So be proud, be out there, be yourselves, do the things that make you happy. And that making you happy doesn't mean doing things to be trans. It means if you like making models, make some models. If you like going to sport, go to sport. If you like listening to music, listen to music. Do those things and do them visibly. So those people who are in the closet, I think there's a takeaway message that it can be happier to come out, right? All of the fear, all of the horror stories, fundamentally you trade in one set of things for another. And I think the things I traded in were worth trading in for being me and being openly me. And I've got a lot more out of it by being me. So if you needed that encouragement to be yourself, don't allow external factors to come around. And to our allies, I would say, be more vocal. Don't be a bystander. It's, the time for standing up is long past, but, it's never too late. We need our friends, we need our allies, and, just, don't be normal with us. Just be as weird as you want to be with us, because we like a bit of weirdness in our friends. But just remember, we're just your friends, we're your family, we're your colleagues, we're all of those things. And honestly, It will blow over. It will end. What it means, though, is that somebody else is going to be on the end of the scrutiny, and let's never forget that. You know, our job is to make sure that nobody has to feel the way we feel. So yeah, a load of messages for people there.
Yeah, I mean, we do face a lot of negativity in the media and the press and from the government, and I think my message will be, you know, it's not a negative thing to be trans, you know, and trans people are full of joy because of transition, because they live their lives as themselves. You know, I remember when I went to see a doctor a long time ago, pre-transition, and I remember this guy saying to me, live your life, be yourself. And that kind of message has stuck with me ever since then. It's never left me that. It's like, and it was so, I think he was like speaking directly to me for a minute there. I don't know why, but that thing actually stuck with me, and it's kind of a bit of my motto these days. And then that, you know, that thing about allies, you know, I'm quite often asked, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to help? And I think my normal answer to that question is just be a friend to us, you know, if we be there for us when we need you, you know, just like you will with anybody else, you know, don't treat us any differently. You know, we are the same as everybody else. I mean, that would be what I would say, you know, in that kind of setting. You know, there's a saying that somebody said to me recently, right? Don't walk past a spill. And I think it was in a health and safety setting. So if you see something going on, just help out. You know, if you see someone being abused, stand up, say something. That's what I would say, I think.
Yeah, can I just pick up on that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that my ask for allies, particularly allies who either know me or know us or know a trans person in their lives. And as Emily said, you know, the time to stand up is long past. If you hear, so, and again, there's not many of us, and when we make, you know, if we hear, we're constantly fighting the anti-trans rhetoric to the point where we just sound like a stuck record. Because it's, oh, you're coming out with the same old stuff. Well, yes, because you keep throwing the same arguments at me. I've got to keep refuting them with the same answers. But what I would ask our allies to do is, you know, trans people, you know, we are just your friends, your neighbors, your whatever, you know, your colleagues. You know, these are lies being told about us. So when you hear these lies, challenge them back. If you're in a social setting, speak up. If you hear somebody mouth in a group, and only when it's safe to do so, absolutely. You know, I'm not encouraging anybody to put themselves in danger here, but, you know, when it's safe to do so, push back against the lies and the misinformation that is spread about us. And it will be more powerful coming from you as an ally rather than Leah off in the corner making the same old noises she's been making for the last 3 years. Because, you know, I'm going to keep saying these things, but my receptive audience is getting smaller because they're just hearing it from me all the time. They're not hearing it from dozens of people. You know, we don't have that volume, weight of numbers to push back on our own.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and Emily is probably going to have a lot of really important things to say about allies in a second, but I just want to jump in that when I came out, a good friend of mine said something that's resonated with me, and I think it's just beautiful. They said, Skye, that's your name. You know, that's fine. You've just gone from marathon to Snickers. You've just changed your wrapper. You've just gone from star fruits to opal fruits. That's great. And you know what? It's brilliant. And it's resonated.
Yeah. So final words, Emily, what would you say is your final?
Well, I mean, I've kind of said about the allies. I mean, I guess the crucial thing is, don't wait for us to be in the room before you speak up. You know, we don't need to be there. That's the most important time.
Yeah, you can
And
speak
I'd
up when
leave
we're
it
not
at that.
there. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the best ally is the one who speaks for the people who aren't in the earshot.
And your final words, Skye, what would you say?
Just understand that we're normal people, that we're human.
Yeah, Leah?
I think just everything everybody else has said on Trans Day of Visibility. know that your trans friends and your trans colleagues and, you know, the trans people you know in your life will hopefully feel a little less afraid on that day, and just try and help them be a little less afraid every other day.
Yeah, I don't think we actually mentioned what day it was. It's March 31st, Trans Day of Visibility. We should probably said it at the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, all three of you, thank you so much for doing this quick pod. Anybody who's watching and listening, thank you for showing up and listening and enjoying our podcast. We'll be back soon for another gripping episode. So until then, I think I'll sign us off there and see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Yeah.